What's up, you phonies? How's it going? Welcome to another video. The video you just saw is part of Aramis's new video about the Tesla trucks in Beverly Hills. If you speak German, you definitely should check it out. Anyways, this video clip was made in Blender, and today I'm going to show you how you can do that too. So the idea is to create the illusion of a sun eclipse. We just had the eclipse recently and it was a big deal on the internet, so I figured, why don't I make a video with that in cooperation with Aramis's Tesla video. So instead of having a moon covering the sun, I'm going to have a Tesla. So when you follow along, you can obviously use whatever you want, but I'm just going to use the Tesla Cybertruck. So let's get started here in Blender. You can see this is my layout here. For me personally, it's very important to have two 3D viewports, one where I can look around and one where I can look straight through the camera. And I also like to have the node editor, or my shader editor rather. I have it on the bottom left. In case you don't have that many workspaces, you can do that by right clicking in between, and you can make, for example, a horizontal split. Now I have two more viewports here I can work with. If you don't need them, you can join them back together. On the top left here, I'm going to use the compositor, because usually I don't use the compositor in Blender, but for this one in particular, it's very helpful. So once you're set up, let's get started. We're going to render in cycles today. So make sure to go to your render properties and switch to cycles. I'm going to use a render threshold of 1, so it's going to render faster. I'm going to use the denoiser. Path guiding is on, light tree is on. We don't need that many bounces, but 2 should be okay for everything. Fast GI approximation is great. You might want to use motion blur, and under color management, this is going to be very important later. So just keep that in mind. So in order to make this scene, we need a couple of things. We need a sun, and we need something the sun is being blocked by, and maybe some nice foreground objects. So let's start with the sun. I'm just going to delete my cube here. I don't need it. With X, I'm going to delete it, and I'm going to make a new mesh with Shift A, mesh, and UV sphere. This is going to be my sun. Before I get started on this, I want to position my camera properly already. So I'm going to click on my camera here. If you don't have a camera, Shift A, scroll down or go down on camera and make one. On the right side here, if the camera is selected, you can go in the camera settings, and what we want is a very long lens. If you look at references of the sun, photographs of the sun or the eclipse, you mostly see the sun pretty big in the shot, and that's only possible with either you're very close to the sun, which equals death, or you're going to use a very, very long lens, 500 mil, 1000 mil, something like that. Now you can see my camera is very long now because the lens is very long. So I have to position my camera properly now. So with G and Y, I'm going to bring my camera back and further back. Up here I can look through my camera. I orient my camera directly to the front. So I'm going to go on item, and under rotation X I have 90 degrees, Y 0 degrees, and Z 180 degrees, so it looks straight up. Now I can position my sun the way I want it. So I'm going to bring it further back, even further back, scale it up, further back. If eventually you don't see anything anymore because you zoomed that far back, that happens because under view you can select how far into the distance you want to watch and you want to see. So we want to see it for a very far distance. So I'm just going to increase this number by a lot. Okay, great. Now this is our sun. Right click, shade smooth. Now obviously we need something covering the sun. And like I said, I'm going to use a Tesla. So under Blender Kit, they have Teslas here. So I'm just going to use one of those. If you don't have Blender Kit, make sure to get it because it's free models, and which is pretty cool. So I can just drag and drop free models into my scene, and then here they are. Great. This Tesla is set up that way that I have a null object here on the bottom. So with that, I can control its position and rotation. So I'm going to bring it into the position where I believe I want it and into the right rotation. With G, I can move it I can rotate it. If I hit and Z, for example, I can rotate it amongst the Z axis. Great. Now I'm going to bring it a little closer to the sun, but not too close. If it gets too close, that means the sun just has to be bigger and further away. You can scale with the S button. And now, since the camera also has a distance, how far it can see, you have to also increase the number under the camera settings. Perfect. Now I can bring it as far back as I want. It's not going to clip. So I want it to be exactly in the center, and I want my Cybertruck to pass through it. I'm going to bring it a little back, a little up. So this is my position. Now I want my Cybertruck to make a movement like this. So now I could animate the rotation and the position, but it's not a great way to do that. So I'm going to show you another way how you can do that. So I'm going to bring my 3D cursor right here with Shift A. I'm going to make a curve, a Bezier curve. There it is. I hit edit mode so I can edit those vertices. And first I'm going to straighten it out. Looks great. Now I'm going to bring those two vertices further back where I want the Cybertruck to start. Let's say here. Let's do a little further back, like here. Now I'm gonna go to perfect side view. Let's hide our sun for a second so I can see. So we are in perfect side view now. Now I can rotate my Bezier. I can scale it up so I can, that way, wherever this Bezier is going to go, my truck is going to go. So something like that. Let's turn the sun back on. Works. Make sure when you adjust the scale of anything, hold Control A and apply the scale. Very important. Now I want the Cybertruck to move where this Bezier curve is moving. The way we're going to do that is I have my null object selected, go to constraints. I'm going to add a constraint, and it's follow path. Now under here I can select a target, which is going to be my Bezier curve, and now something already happened. Now it's glued somewhere, but not exactly where it has to be. I'm just going to bring it closer to where I want it actually to be. Now I'm going to select follow curve, and usually under one of those options it's going to be positive X. That's where I want it. So now when I animate this offset here, it's going to follow the path. I still can see it's a little away from my curve, so I can bring it a little closer. So now if I animate this value, it's going to follow the path. I don't like how high my Tesla truck is going. I don't want it to go that high, so I'm just going to grab my Bezier curve, hit G, Z, and bring it a little down. Perfect. Now when I go on my constraint, which is still on this null object, go from here to here. It's exactly what I want. So to animate this, go to frame number 1, hover over offset, hit I on your keyboard, go to your last frame, whatever it might be. Let's go to 100, and go to the very last position where you want your Tesla truck to be. Hit I again. Now what we did down here, I have my graph editor so I can see how it's moving. What I don't like is that you see how slowly it ramps up and eventually it ramps back down. I don't want it. I want it to be linear. The way we're going to do that, we hover over the graph editor here, hit A to select them both. Now hit T. Now this opens this set keyframe interpolation, and I want it to be linear. Now this graph is not curvy anymore, it's straight up. So now when I play the animation, it's doing exactly what I want. Wonderful. The easy part is done. Now what we need to do is make it look cool. And that we can achieve through cool lighting. So the first thing we do is we're going to switch to cycles, because this is how we're going to see things. As you can see, not much is happening here. So what we need is this ball back here. This thing here has to be a sun. So we're going to give it a new material. That's why it's important to have the shader editor here. If you don't have it here, click up here on shading, same thing. Now, very simple, we're going to delete the principal BSDF it comes with. We just select it, hit X, and delete it. See, now our object has no material anymore. Now Shift A, and we're going to make an emission node. So just type in emission or just E. Here it is. And now if we plug this into the surface, it's just bright white. Now I don't want it to be white. Let's give it something warmer, like something like this. And don't you worry, we're going to play with this a lot to get the effect we want. And now we're going to increase the strength by 1,000,000,000. Let's say 1,000, because that's what the sun is. And believe it or not, most of the work is done right now, even though it doesn't look like much yet. Now we have one other problem. If we click on object, go on world, we have a gray background. If we turn this down, we see only the sun emits light, which is good. Now we have two options now. The easier option is you just give it an HDRI. If you are like me and you're lazy and you don't want to Google those things, I have Polyhaven installed on my computer. It's a free plugin where you can have models, HDRIs, and all kinds of stuff like that. And this is what it looks like. So when I go in HDRIs, outdoor, let's say nature, maybe skies, midday, nighttime, yeah. Something like that will work. So I'm just going to plug this. I just drag and drop it in here. So now I'm going to have a sky, which is great. Unfortunately, the sky is also very bright because what we're going to do is we want to expose for the sun. If you look at references, very important, look at references on the scenes you do because people have done something like that already in real life. So you want to simulate that and you want to expose for the sun. Now let's see what else you can do to make the scene a little more interesting. Because that would be enough, but I figured I'm going to model maybe a skyline. And I'm going to show you a very fast way to model a skyline. First, we need to determine a position where we want it. And let's say I want it to between the car and the sun. So somewhere between here. So I'm just going to go here. With Shift, right click, I'm going to add my 3D cursor. Now I'm going to make Shift A plane. I'm going to bring it right to the center. With G, Shift Z, I can shift it around only on the X and Y axes. But remember, you want it to be exactly between the camera and the sun. And it's a 1,000mm lens, so you have to be very exact. So I can see it up here. It's like right there. So it's like floating. So I obviously want to put it on the ground. So right here. Now I'm going to scale this bad boy up. It fills the scene. The camera right now is on ground level, and let's just keep it there. That also means that I have to bring my actual skyline lower, right on the bottom of my scene. Now we changed the scale of our plane, so what do we have to do? Yes, apply the scale. Control A, apply. Now, in order to make a skyline like I have, all I did was I go in tab, edit mode, right click, subdivide. Now I'm going to subdivide it by, let's say, let's do a few more, 15. That'll do. Now I'm going to go to face selection mode, or you can also hit 3, the number 3 on the left side. And now click on select random. See, it's just selected random faces. Now you can change the ratio, like you don't want as many. You can also have a different seed if you don't like the one which was chosen. And I'm looking for one where none of those are touching each other, like right now. And now I hit E and extrude them up. Let's say till here. This is going to be my highest buildings. Now I'm just going to select a few of those, bring them back down. So it's a little more random. Maybe one a little higher, lower, higher, lower. Yeah, just keep doing that until this one I kind of want it low. I don't want to block the sun. This one can be a little higher. And with G and then Z, I can bring it just up and down. If I didn't hit Z, it would be like all kinds of weird. Great. And then if I want more randomness in the buildings, I just go on 2 or edge selection mode, select one edge, and just bring that up a little. I can do that with a few of those. Now I have a skyline. Let's give our skyline a material. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Yes, you can give it like a city material, but it's not necessary because all we want in the end is a silhouette. So I'm just going to make the material black and roughness up because I don't want it to be too reflective. And that's basically it. Now if I want to, I can rotate it so it's a little more random like this. It looks more three-dimensional, and that's it for that. I know it still doesn't look awesome, but it will. I promise you, the magic happens in the last 5%, so please stay tuned. Okay, the next move we're gonna do is we're gonna select our sun here. This is my sun. My buildings and stuff like that are in the background. I'm gonna bring my 3D cursor here, and I'm gonna import an image of a sunset. So I have a pretty sky in the background, so I don't have to create it all from scratch. The way I'm gonna do that is I Shift A, go down to image, and images as planes. If you don't have images as planes here, that means you have to install it, but it's inside of Blender. So you just go up to Edit, Preferences, to Add-ons. Now you just type in images as planes and check this on and save preferences. Then you're gonna have images as planes also. Very, very useful, especially when you do like green screen stuff like I do all the time. This is how you import your green screen footages. Now, I have a cool, colorful sunset here. Let's check it out. Beautiful, isn't it? Just kidding, that's not it. I go to Viewport for shading. This is my sunset now. Now, since my sun and all that is so far away and so big, I have to scale it up until this entire background is part of it. Now, it automatically makes a material for it, but we have to change it up a little. So we're going to delete the principled BSDF, Shift A, make a new one, let's try emission, connect the image with color, color with your surface, and that works great for now. It might change later. But now we have this pretty sky in the background, and that's going to sell the effect better. Now I know it still doesn't look great, but it will. I swear to you, it's going to look great. When I was doing that for the first time, I also didn't believe it, but yeah, it's just in the compositor, this is where the magic happens later. Now when we look at it, this is basically the animation we have. It's great. It's going to block the sun. It's 100 frames long. That means also, let's go to our output and make our frame range to 100 frames so we can loop it when we watch it. Lovely. Now let's go back to cycles. And now, very important, when we're gonna start working on the compositor, you want to enable the compositor always. So you're gonna do that by clicking on this little arrow here, not this one. That one does something else, and this one does also something else. On the very far right one, click on that, and the compositor is enabled always. So now let's bring our compositor back here. We click on Use Nodes. Now, I'm not super proficient with the compositor. I just explain it to you what my understanding is. So this here on the left, this is on our renderer layer. You can see it says scene because this here is our scene. I could have multiple ones of those, would have different names, but we don't, so we don't have to worry about that. So this is our render layer. This here is the final output for our compositor, and in between here we can add all kinds of nodes. Let's start simple, and just to explain, I hit Shift A, new, let's do RGB curves. Everybody knows curves from Photoshop, After Effects, Premiere, it's always the same. So now when I adjust it, you can see my image is getting brighter, or it gets darker. Get it? And like I said, it has different nodes. Like let's try hue and saturation. Now I plug in my image into image and image into image in the compositor. So now if I want to change the color to green, I can do that. Or if I want more saturation or less saturation, I want it brighter or darker, I can do all of that in the compositor. And I'm starting to like this because usually what I do is I just render it out, bring it into After Effects, and this is where I composite it. But I'm starting to like the Blender compositor better, so we'll see how that goes. If I'm going to continue working with that or not, we'll see. But for that project in particular, very useful. So what we need is a glare node. Actually two of those, but we're going to start with one. So we're going to plug image into image and image into image. So beautiful. Our job here is done. Kidding, it's not done. So those glares, they do very different things, and I'll just show you what I did in the video you saw in the beginning. I used fog glow. That gives me a nice glow. Now mix means how much of the glow I actually want. -1 means not at all. +1 means I want it a lot. 0 means it's like a happy medium. So with this one, you have to play around a lot. So the threshold is going to stay on 1000 or 1. In size, let's make it a 9. Okay, as you can see, you can't see anything right now, because basically what it does, like everything what's emissive right now, it just glared out. Okay, so we could try to fix it by reducing the sunlight and all that, but no, what we actually want to do, something I discovered very recently, you don't want to adjust the sunlight, because the sunlight is a certain strength. What you do want to do, adjust the exposure, because that's what you do with a real camera. So under your render settings, go very far down on color management and turn the exposure down. Oh, and we have a very cool effect. And that's the kind of silhouette you get when you film something against the sun. I'll do you one better. Let's make another glare. Plug this in between. This one is going to stay on streaks. We're going to crank this number up by a little, let's say 4. Color modulation is fine. Mix we're going to play with later on, but let's go -2. Looks good. Threshold 1000. Streaks is 4 is great. We're not going to touch angle offset. And fade, let's go a little lower, let's say 0.85. Okay, and that's very cool. Now, we obviously don't see any of our city anymore. Everything is just blown out. Now, really, it comes down to adjust your settings properly. So maybe the sun is too strong, maybe the sky is not strong enough. Let's bring the sky further up. Now we got it. So I just had to expose or increase the strength of my background so I get my sky back. You can see how cool it is when the Tesla comes in front and then it leaves and the glare is impacted. All of that would need to be done manually if you did that in After Effects in post. So that's very cool. And now let's say you do actually want a real eclipse. You know, maybe you came to this video because you wanted to create an eclipse. Just duplicate your sun by Shift D, bring it closer to the camera. Now we have to change the material to, let's say, just diffuse. We don't need anything crazy here. Just let's plug in diffuse, but make it black. Decrease the size a little, bring it a little to the side, and look at that. We have an eclipse, just like that. This is what it looks like without the glare, and that's what it looks like with the glare. Now you can adjust your exposure, maybe a little higher. And if you want to render out of Blender that it's done, what you probably want to do is go on Look, go on High Contrast, and when you're satisfied, go on File Output, pick a folder where you want to export into, your frame rate, your resolution. You don't need RGBA, RGB will do. I like to render in color depth 16 just in case you do want to add something, some more colors. I want to experiment with color grading a little more in post. That's very helpful. And when you believe you're done, come over here, render, and render animation. So that's it for this video. I hope that was helpful. If you liked it, make sure to smash the like button, because that's what YouTubers have to say, so you can actually, click this button there. And if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below. And if you have any suggestions how to make this better, please let us know in the comments so we can all benefit from it. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video. Toodaloo.